All right, we are at 2:45. So our second speaker is Forrest Hoffman. He is going to be talking about Land Model Testbed, accelerating development, benchmarking, and analysis of land surface models. Take it away,
Thank
Forrest.
you, Rajesh. And thanks for the opportunity to present today in the Gateways 2020 conference. My colleagues and I have done some work in a project that was funded at Oak Ridge National Laboratory to kind of extend some efforts that we've had in model development and in model evaluation. And I'm going to talk to you today about some of the additional work that we've done here to make tools more accessible to model developers and model users. We called this the Land Model Testbed, or LMT project. And the main idea was to develop a workflow that would allow us to execute a collection of land surface models on big hardware like the Summit machine, which is the #2 in the top 500 fastest computers in the world, which is located at Oak Ridge National Lab. And to be able to then, after running maybe thousands of simultaneous simulations, evaluate them in an intelligent way and look at functional relationships and try to understand the behavior of the models through comparisons with observational data that would then inform us about additional model development that was required, or other ways to perturb the models in such a way that we could do this in a rapid, organized way. So we developed this workflow and tested it both on the Summit machine and on a sort of cloud system that lives inside the laboratory. We developed tools to do post-processing. We developed a dashboard capability that we applied not only to our own model evaluation capability, but to other packages as well. Some of the work that we did facilitated methods for providing model output to a CMIP activity. And so this is used by the IPCC for their assessment reports. So we do some simulations this way. And so a lot of the tools that we developed through this project actually benefited our work on CMIP as well. This effort kind of centers around this ILAMB package, this International Land Model Benchmarking package, which we've developed through a DOE, Department of Energy funded activity to evaluate models. And what you see here is a whole suite of variables down the left-hand side in the figure on the left, and a whole bunch of models across the top. And this evaluation allows us to see the relative performance of models in comparison with a variety of observational data sets. And then for every one of the variables on the left-hand side, you can see for the hydrological cycle, for instance, you can click on them and open up additional lists. So every one of these lines that appears with blue text represents a different data set, a different way that we can evaluate that variable. And so we run this big suite of analyses across all of these models, and then we can look at their relative performance. And an interesting thing coming out of this effort right now is that you'll see the more brown colors on the left and more blue colors on the right, because the left-hand models are older generation models from the CMIP-5 activity, and the models on the right are newer models from the CMIP-6 activity. And so this is something that we're doing to try to determine how much models may have improved over the 5 to 7 years in between these CMIP activities that we have, and whether that's attributable to improvements in the forcing versus improvements in the characteristics of the land surface model itself. So that's sort of sitting at the heart of the diagnostics system that we have. And I'm going to turn the pointer on here so I can point you to different things. But our entire workflow consisted of a suite of scripts for taking the land models and running them either through this CADES cloud system at ORNL or through the Summit machine. And then out of all of those runs, and possibly thousands of them, we then feed that back into our LMT, our Land Model Testbed system, to run ILAMB, do all the post-processing and data conversion that's needed in order to then run our ILAMB diagnostics diagnostics and benchmarking, and then look at the results both through a unified dashboard that I'm going to present in a moment, and this Jupyter Notebook system. In addition to that, we developed a bunch of tools that allow us to share these model results through a globally interconnected set of systems called the Earth System Grid Federation, so that our model results can then be made available to the wider community who are also evaluating them for various kinds of applications and impacts analysis and things that go into these large assessment reports. Our kind of premier use case is this idea of a perturbed parameter ensemble. And the idea there is that we need this capability to do many thousands of model simulations where we're tweaking parameters in order to kind of understand the sensitivity of the model to those parameters, which tells us how well we need to measure them, and to develop sort of an optimized suite of these parameters so that we get the actual performance, so that our results compared with ILAMB are the best they can be out of the land model. So we developed this framework with the capability to launch many thousands of instances on the Summit machine, for instance. So we have concurrent model execution, and we optimize the performance so that we could generate these large ensembles with varying parameter suites and reduce the workflow from 12 hours to 10 minutes on a single node on Summit. So that was pretty major performance improvement that we realized through this effort. And then we've done work in JupyterLab to allow us to do this interactive analysis. So we deploy this on high memory computational nodes so that we can read in lots of this model output simultaneously. But by using JupyterLab and Jupyter Notebooks, this allows us a reproducible and shareable way of doing our analysis. And then any papers that we write will point to a GitHub repo that has the Jupyter Notebooks and access to the data so that you can rerun it all yourself and make changes to it. And we think this is the way that we should be doing science these days. In addition to that, parts of the ILAMB Python software can be used as a library of diagnostic tools, especially for file handling. So you see basically that there are very few Python commands here that are referencing our tools in order to read a large amount of model output and give, for instance, very simple plots of seasonal cycle of, in this case, gross primary productivity across a collection of models. As a part of this, we also developed some new Ensemble diagnostics that allow you to kind of move your mouse over different parts of these violin plots. And this isn't active right now. This is just a static image. But if it were active, you would see that wherever I was, for instance, in this parameter, then bars would appear and be highlighted in other violin plots so that you could see, for instance, what combination of parameters gives me the best bias score, right? So where am I least biased in my model by doing that? And this plot in the bottom center, this annual cycle, is something that's redrawn as you move across all of these various parameters, and you can see how well you match the annual cycle that's actually coming from the observations. So this gives us a nice way to play with parameters, do lots of simulations, and then evaluate that output and try to understand what's the compromise between all of the parameters that go into this model that give me the best combination for whatever my target is. And for this, in this case, it's that annual cycle of gross primary productivity. And in another activity, we've developed this dashboard that I alluded to earlier, and it allows us to put a better front end picture on that ILAMB system. It allows us to kind of swap, for instance, the variables and data sets down the left-hand side with the models across the top. So we can kind of swap the rows and columns here. We can also move all the rows around and move the columns around so that we can get kind of the picture we want. So if we're interested in comparing this BCC model with this other BCC model, we can just drag them over next to each other so that we have them side by side, and then compare them, for instance, to the mean CMIP6 model. And this gives us also the ability to turn on our score numbers that appear in the little boxes here, which gives us more information about how well are these models actually doing, in addition to what their relative performance is by looking at the colors. So this gives us a real nice interactive capability on trying to understand now what the results mean after we've spent so much effort developing the tools to provide them. We still have the human problem of trying to understand what they mean. The nice thing about the unified dashboard is that it reads standard JSON files, and we can take somebody else's diagnostics, for instance, those produced by the PCMDI metrics package, and put our front-end dashboard on the front of their diagnostics. And so you can do the same thing here, and you get this interactive capability. You can click on a box and pull up any one of their diagnostics, and we can host this on our website. So the people who ran those other diagnostics may or may not even know that we have this other dashboard working. And the idea here is that we want to be able to then combine lots of analysis capabilities from different packages together and provide a single unified interface for users into that information. Another thing that we've developed kind of on the backside, the post-processing, is a way of trying to map what our model output variables are into a bunch of standard variable names that are used in these large collaborative activities like CMIP. And so there's a little tool here that builds the sort of lists of equations and processing and integration, spatial and temporal integration that needs to be done to provide that set of output variables that then we can offer to the Earth System Grid Federation.
Good. One minute first.
Okay, thank you. One more thing that we've done is applied machine learning to look at empirical relationships. So we used a random forest machine learning method to predict net carbon ecosystem exchange, both from observations on that left-hand column of figures and from the land model output itself, from a whole bunch of these simulations that we ran with different parameters. And you can see that we do a pretty good job of capturing what NEE would be based on those other forcing factors in the model. But you'll also see that the models and the observations have different relative importance for those same variables. So clearly, what's coming out of the model is not quite representative of what we know from the observations. So this informs us that we need to go back and use other kinds of metrics like this to figure out how to improve models. So we've developed a suite of tools and capabilities. We're going to be doing more of these perturbed parameter ensembles on multiple models. So we're looking forward to that. Now we have the ability to do much more work in developing more dashboards collaboratively with other activities and other projects, and do more tool development. And we think this is a growing area for ripe for improving models and working collaboratively across large projects, doing this kind of climate and Earth system modeling. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Forrest, for that really interesting presentation. So yeah, if anyone has any questions, please do put it in the Zoom chat. We can take maybe 1 or 2 questions now. If you have others, then you can put it in the shared doc in the Kiko chat, and then we'll go over them in the last 15 minutes. So while people are typing stuff in, I have a question for us. So you mentioned workflow. So so is the workflow part of evaluating a particular model, or is it actually running like coupled models in like a certain order? What does the workflow really do?
Yeah, so right now it runs a single model, but we have 2 models kind of installed in the test bed. And the idea is that we can create simultaneous simulations of any number of those models and perturb their parameters. So right now we're using the E3SM land model and the community land model, but it's extensible. So we built this framework so that we could plug other land models in there, figure out what their inputs are, what their outputs are, and be able to translate between those models. So the idea is that it's sort of a test harness for running lots of land models.
Okay. And so this is mainly to provide information to users or researchers who might use these models, right? So does it also support like people actually coming in and doing their own runs of these models, or do you expect that they would just take the model and then run it on their own resources?
Yeah, so we want to provide that front end. What we haven't done yet is provided the Jupyter front end for actually setting up those simulations. Right now it's script based, so you have to come in and get an account. But you pretty much have to do that anyway because we really designed them to run simultaneously on these large compute resources. So you need to have an account on those already.
Right.
But once you have that, we can show you how to set it up and do it. We've invested more time on the backside to give you the interactive analysis tools and capabilities. So, and a way of publishing our model results so that people can use them that way. And that can be done anywhere on any kind of fat memory systems.
Got it. All right. Well, thanks for those clarifications. Since we're at 3 right now, we'll move on to the next presentation. And yeah, please, if anyone has any questions, please do put it in the shared doc in Kiko. I know there's a question about SWOT in there that we'll get to in the last 15 minutes. But if you have questions for Forrest, please do put it in there.